So what, if any, role do parents play in youth ministry?
Well, I think that's an extremely important question right now. There has been a great and somewhat difficult season of critique related to youth ministry and how youth ministry has failed to yield disciples. And we all know all these statistics that come around to be about 70% of kids that go through youth ministry will not continue with the church after high school. And so, a lot of the things that people talk about in that is people will talk about the entertainment culture of youth ministry. They'll talk about the light or non-existent gospel, or the kind of absence of any depth in terms of the doctrinal teaching. But something that a lot of people overlook is that the leaders in this research, two of whom are Kenneth Creasy Dean and Christian Smith, have both identified this as the fault of the church and of parents. And so I think personally that the church has done a poor job of communicating to parents that they are the primary discipler of their child. And what has kind of gone on in the culture is we see that there is a propensity to outsource the development of our children. So for intellectual development, we send them to school. For athletic development, we send them to Little League. And for spiritual formation, we send our kids to youth group. And we have to be very intentional and not assuming that parents understand their role. We have to let them know that we are partners with them in the spiritual formation of their children. And parents don't believe this. But the reality is that kids listen to their parents far more than they're going to listen to a youth minister. And so we have to encourage parents with that good news.
Yeah. Parents absolutely are allies. They are your best support in terms of doing youth ministry. I came from doing adult ministry, and when you're working with adults, you realize they're autonomous, they have money, they're free, they're self-created, not self-created, but they don't have strings attached to their parents. You go to work with the students, and you realize how bound up that young, unformed kid is with their mom and dad. They are mimicking them in every way, and so we look to them to know what's going on in the life of the kid. We have one parent who's a leader. I was not sure how that was going to go, but it's gone very well, actually. But I always go to the parents. Communication is a high priority with us and the parents. We want them to know everything that we're doing, over the next month, just practically speaking, over the next week. We want to just be in constant dialogue with them to cultivate trust amongst them, with them. And we just want to supplement the spiritual development of that home. We're not there to, and I think as you said, to be the primary spiritual teacher in the life of the student, but really to come alongside and say, hey, how can I help? What can I translate? What's not coming across for your daughter or your son? So parents are hugely important. You can't know the student if you don't know what's going on with the parent.
Mm-hmm. It makes me think about how we as youth ministers have got to have relationships with those parents, more than even just conveying the information of what we're teaching, but we want to know where they're coming from, even what they offer, what their passions are, which might add to our youth ministry or be a place of connection for the rest of our group. And it's not crazy for the youth group kid to come home and share the gospel with their parents, I think, from what they hear and learn. So sharing the grace of God with parents is sometimes what we get to do. The honor we get as youth ministers as well, and I can't overemphasize the need for a relationship with parents as well as kids.
You spend a lot of time with the parents?
Yeah, I feel like I remember when I first started that my mentor said there's no such thing as youth ministry, there's family ministry. Yeah. And I feel like so much of my work has become a lot of conversations with parents and helping them understand and relate to their child. Helping them understand the spiritual nature of their kids' everyday problems. It's funny. There's a blogger and youth minister up in Massachusetts named Mike McGarry, and he talks about how youth ministers are a bridge between the church and families and the kids. And it's funny because there was a season when I would be somewhat frustrated or defensive because I felt like the parents. They questioned why we didn't do more entertainment or more fun and games, and they would point to other churches that were more attractional and say that we should maybe emulate what they're doing. And I was so surprised that they didn't appreciate that we were trying to, build disciples, make disciples of their children. But what I realized is that we had never done anything to communicate to the parents our vision for their child.
Mm-hmm.
And furthermore, we had never done anything to include them in that vision.
Mm-hmm.
Our hope for their child, and when we started, we got so much more support with what we were doing when we started to communicate what we want for your child is for them to follow Jesus with their life, for them to be obedient to God's law, for them down the road to be a really good parent and a really good spouse, and for them to experience joy and hope and peace and freedom in their life. And when we started to communicate our ministry as a partnership, and to include them in that. And for me as the youth minister to do Sunday school classes from time to time where I am talking to the parents about equipping them to disciple their own children, it has been such a more supportive and effective climate.
Yeah, and I think when you come alongside parents, first of all, youth pastors love their students, but they love them nowhere near the way that parents do. And when you are helping that parent, they take an interest in you and in the ministry, and they are just so helpful. And they actually, as I'm thinking about it, when I took the job, my community in the church just changed, and my great friends became the parents. So they've just been a blessing to me personally. So I would just say to any youth pastor, don't isolate the parents, bring them in, don't be afraid of them, communicate with them, and not just have a student ministry, but as I can't remember the person you said, but have a family ministry, a youth community, to raise that kid up.
And don't give up. Relationships are messy, so even with the parents, there will be mess and conflicting ideas of what the vision is for their kids, but collaborate, talk to them, keep talking to them.
Yeah, and empathize with them.
Yes.
Think about, when you have your own children, you start, I did not have children before when I first became a youth minister. Now I do, and I understand the drama and the fear and in my own life, the absence of rationale when it comes to my kids. And, we just have to really empathize with how difficult it is to be a parent, how scary it is as these children are breaking into independence, and really be a compassionate pastoral presence for them as they worry about the future of their child.
Yeah.